give it a second. Sorry. Okay. So if you're watching this not live, remember that you need to finish watching it on Edpuzzle, and then you go back and submit the attendance assignment. And as long as the attendance assignment, if it's done during class, then you will get credit for being here today. And if it's done after class, you'll get credit for watching it online. Later today, this afternoon, I'm going to put out a short video explaining the setup for this unit, and also explaining the grade categories, because I changed those a little bit. And so, and I'll send a text out for that. Let me show you guys one quick thing before we get started. Sure, why not? Okay, so on the GoPo, on our main page on Canvas, you'll have this page that's Unit 5 resources. Until we get closer to test time, all that's going to be is copies of the PowerPoint put in, so you can supplement your notes. The thing that we need to remember as a class is that we're going to end up having class 3 times a week now. Okay, the first time we're going to have class is on Monday, and that's going to be during your normal class time. So if you're a red person, it's easy. You just come to class at school at the time you normally come to class. We're all going to get on Google Meet together. If you are a blue person on Monday, then you're going to come to class from your house at the same time we have class that day. And that's for Monday. Okay. The second day of the week that we have class is on Thursday. And on Thursday, that's exactly the opposite. So the blue students will be in class with me in person. And then the red students are going to be at home joining the Google Meet. And of course, if you are MyRocked Online, then you're going to be virtual on both of those days. So, so those are the 2 regular class days that we're going to have. And the reason I'm doing this is I asked classes for feedback of what's working and what's not working. And the biggest thing that people said was working was live stuff, that it's a lot easier to learn from live stuff than recorded stuff, which I completely understand. And then right now, you are in the 3rd class of the week, and that's normally going to be a Q&A session on Fridays. Okay. And today it's not going to be a Q&A session because there's nothing to Q&A over because we just did the unit exam. So today I'm actually going to do a lecture during this time. The smart way to make sure you're getting the most out of notes is to take notes during the lecture. If you are fast enough at typing and it works for you, you can totally open up another window beside of mine and type as you go. Some of you guys might feel more comfortable writing as you go. But the thing that's going to be a constant here is the next day we meet is when the notes are due from the last day we met. So due dates in this class are just going to be Monday and Thursday. And then I'm asking you for Q&A questions before we meet on Friday morning. Okay. Anybody have any questions about that? None? Okay, excellent. So let me stop that. Minimize that. Pull this thing. Booty, booty, boo. Okay. Here, let me fix that. That's a picture of our last president. That's how he keeps his hair up. That's fun. It's called a man bun. Okay, so we are executive branching. And so just to introduce things, the president has all these names and titles. And probably like the most exalted title that the president has is the leader of the free world. And that's a phrase that came around during the Cold War, after World War II, when there was basically two superpowers. There was the United States and there was the USSR, which today is Russia, sort of. And so, of course, we're Americans, so we're going to say we are freedom and they are tyranny, right? And so we basically said any country that's friends with the US, they're free. And any country that's not friends with the US, they're not free. And so anybody that's buddies with the USSR, they're not free. So who's the leader of all the free countries? The president. And that's when we ended up calling the president the leader of the free world. And then another one that we'll come back to a bunch of times is the commander-in-chief. You'll hear some people say commander and chief. That's wrong. I mean, that's just wrong. The commander-in-chief means that the president is in charge of the military. That the president is the highest ranking. No, he's not high ranking. The president is the most, they have complete control over the military. And we'll talk about some places where there are some checks. And we talked about the War Powers Act already. But commander-in-chief is a really big one. Also, I've been teaching GoPo since before. Let's see. I started teaching GoPo in 2013, and in 2013 there had never been a female candidate for president beyond the primaries, because Hillary Clinton got beat in the primaries versus Obama in 2008. And so there's something in a lot of people that when they talk about the president, they want to use male pronouns. And I try not to do that, just because, you know, women can be president and you don't have to be a male to be president. And I would say probably looking at Joe Biden, we might be the closest to having a female president than we ever have been, because he's technically dead, as they just put steroids in his eyeballs in the morning and then he walks around. but yeah, so I'll try to make sure I do that. But there's going to be times when I say he, but I try not to do that because turns out women are people too. They've done the research. All right. The next thing that's important is the presidential power myth. And I don't think anybody will argue that anyone has more power than the president in United States government. That's true. But does the president have absolute power? Is the president a king? And the answer is no. The easy description of why that is checks and balances. Remember Marbury versus Madison, judicial review. Anything the president tries to do has to be constitutional. If it's not constitutional, then people can sue the president. And the Supreme Court can decide the constitutionality of what they do. So, for example, a lot of the examples I'm going to give in class are definitely going to be from the last 4 years for a couple of reasons. The first thing is Joe Biden's been president for like 22 days, right? And the other reason is President Trump really pushed the boundaries as far as what a president can and can't do. So there's going to be a lot of Trump references, and mainly it's just going to come back to his man bun for the most part. And so one of the first things Donald Trump did when he came to after he was elected was he said, hey, seems like a lot of terrorists that are terrorizing the US are Muslims. Let's make an executive order that says we don't want people coming to the United States if they're from one of these 13 countries. And those 13 countries were Muslim majority countries. Okay. And so most of the president's supporters are like, heck yeah, that's going to keep America safe. And most opponents of the president said, wait a minute, you're deciding whether or not people get into this country based on their religion. That's a violation of the Establishment Clause. All right. So even before he signed the executive order, there was already hundreds of groups drafting up lawsuits and to stop him from doing that. And ultimately, he ended up, Trump got very lucky with the Supreme Court because people just kept dying. And so Trump got to name 3 members of the Supreme Court. And even though the Supreme Court is not supposed to be, hey, Garrett, can you please turn your light on? Thank you. And because he ended up having 3 members on the Supreme Court, they're kind of beholden to him because he gave them the biggest job they'll ever have, right? And so they kind of went with him. And at that time, the Supreme Court didn't overturn the Muslim ban. And the Muslim ban lasted throughout Trump's time. Of course, when Joe Biden when was elected, one of the first things he did was overturn the Muslim ban. But it's important to know that judicial review is a big thing. Okay. And so the judicial branch is supposed to be not they're supposed to be not beholden to anybody, but Congress and the cabinet are even more so that way. And so what that means? Hey Garrett, go ahead and leave the chat, and I'll send you an email afterwards. Okay. All right. Yeah. That's ridiculous. So so Congress, the people that they are most they're most attached to, of course, are the people that vote for them, their constituents, and also the people that donate to them, right? The corporations, and so quite often they're not as right eye to eye with the president as people might think they are, and then the cabinet. Even more so. So the president appoints members to the cabinet, but after that, they're kind of mixed up in this situation where they have to deal with all the people in their industry way more than they do the president. And so everybody has a reason to make the president happy, but it's not always a situation where that's the most important thing. And as you're going to hear me say 1,000 times during this unit, I'm going to say it now. It's a little bit different with Trump. Trump was not just a president. There's never been a president like Trump, and there probably never will be another president like Trump, because it wasn't just he was a dude that got elected to be president, but he had such a following, and he got so many people behind him that there are Congress people right now who we have on tape 5 years ago calling themselves never Trumpers. And basically it was when the primaries were going on in 2015, and Donald Trump started winning some primaries. And so all these people come together and they say, no, we're Republicans and we do not want Donald Trump to be the head of this party. We are completely against Donald Trump. And then afterwards, we see them flip and congratulate President Trump and defend him in the media because he was the president, but also because of his following. And now those same people, a majority of them who were never Trumpers in 2015, are still supporting President Trump even after he's left office. And that's because he's had such an influence over half the country, right? Raise your hand if you've ever seen a truck flying a Trump flag. Yeah, raise your hand if you've ever seen a truck flying an Obama flag. Okay, Bill Clinton flag. Joe Biden flag? Yeah, right. Okay. And so you see how that's a different influence. So if I'm a Republican in Kentucky and I'm running in 2022 and I think Donald Trump is a jerk, I'm probably going to keep my mouth shut, right? Because Kentucky went for Trump so quickly. So yeah. All right. It's good that we're doing this time of year because we can kind of apply this to where where we are right now in the US. All right. So there are great expectations for the president. And really, the president is expected to just fix everything. And a lot of time, well, all the time, it's because that's how the president runs, right? The president says, you know, the president who is the incumbent means they're holding the office already and they're defending the office against a newcomer. They're always going to say, hey, guys, look, the country is so much better now than it was 4 years ago, right? Give me 4 more years and it'll be even better. Like, I'll fix everything that's wrong. And then the person who's the newcomer, their job is to say, oh my God, look how bad it is. Like, we've got to do something to fix this. We've got to, you pick me and I'll get rid of all the crap that this guy did and try to fix it. Like, I can fix it all. And so they make those promises. But like we saw in the last slide, that's not, it's really hard to do that. I think it was Federalist 78. It was a Hamilton Federalist paper where basically he said, let's be careful because we got to find balance between making the president so powerful that they might become a tyrant, or making them so weak that they're kind of walked all over and they can't really get anything done. And so today there's 2 views of what a president should do. One is we need a strong president, and we're going to need to give that president a lot of power because we got to get stuff done. Okay. And one thing I would make sure that I jot down here is this. Hang on. In times of in tough times, we give the pres more power. You guys see that, or is it too small? Can see it? Okay. Okay, guys, all aboard the example train. Choo choo. Raise your hand if you're ready to ride the example train. All right, good. Okay, cool. Here's the example train. FDR. All heck broke loose. All heck broke loose when we had the Great Depression, right? President really doesn't have much of a job with how the economy works, but FDR was like, all right, we're going to take this money, we're going to move it here, we're going to hire these people, we're going to give them money. And he just starts moving stuff around and getting stuff done. And everybody's like, well, the Republicans are like, is this even constitutional? And the Democrats and the 90% of the Republicans who were broke as crap are like, shut up, let him do it. He's trying to fix it. Okay. And that's the New Deal. And we'll talk about that when we do party eras. But basically he like fixed the economy himself, even though constitutionally he probably shouldn't have been able to. But we're in a scary situation. And so we're like, please, please, sir, help us. Okay. Here's another example. Do you guys remember at the beginning of the year, we talked about habeas corpus, which means have the body. And so it means, oh, you said I killed that guy? Okay. Show me the body. Show me the corpse. Habeas corpus. Do you have the corpse? And what that basically is you can't throw me in jail unless you can show me the evidence you're using to throw me in jail. Right? That's kind of common sense, right? I can't just go to your house and say, "Hey, you're going to jail because of the murder of this person," and I'm like, I don't even know who that person is, and they're like, "Oh, well, here's the body. Here's the videotape that shows you killing him." And I'm like, "Oh, habeas corpus." Well, you know that great president Abraham Lincoln who freed the slaves single-handedly? Uh-huh. He suspended habeas corpus during the Civil War. He made it so cops could throw people in jail without telling them why they're being thrown in jail. And because we're in a civil war, everybody's like, "Oh, okay, well, he must know what he's talking about. Go for it, Abe." All right. Um, and then an example I used earlier in the year was the Patriot Act. So 9/11 happened. These terrorists come and blow up these buildings, and America is scared that there's going to be terrorist attacks every 2 weeks, right? And so George Bush passes this law that says we're allowed to wiretap people. We're allowed to go to the library. The federal government can go to the library and say, "Hey, that Herbie Brock was saying some pretty crazy things in his class. Can I see a list of all the books he's checked out?" And like these huge invasions of privacy under because they're trying to stop terrorists. And Congress people and American citizens are like, "Well, yeah, we're losing a little bit of rights, but we got to stay safe." Um, and even with coronavirus, we've seen a lot of this kind of stuff. And because we're so politically polarized, there's a lot more pushback on the other side. But there wasn't a whole lot of pushback when every state in the country pretty much shut down their economy last March, right? And it was only after it dragged on and business owners started saying, "Hey, we're not making any money. We're gonna go belly up," did we start to see those challenges. And this is one of those situations where we can see Joe Biden and Donald Trump doing the same thing. So Donald Trump was a proponent of the stimulus checks that came out in 2020. And I don't think most people know why a stimulus check is even a thing. But basically, like an economy shuts down when people stop spending money and start hoarding money. But people tend to do that in a time of crisis. So the first time I heard of a stimulus check was in 2008 when they didn't call it the Great Depression, they called it the Great Recession. And basically what Obama did was he's like, "Okay, we're going to get the federal government. They're going to send a check to every American citizen, and hopefully they're going to go out and start spending money. And if they start spending money, that'll jumpstart the economy again." And that's something that Trump did, and that's something that Biden is doing. And if you think about it, I think Biden was like almost $2 trillion, I think was what he was going to get out to the American people. That's a whole lot of money for one person to be able to grab and then move over here. And a president wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't a time of great turmoil. And so here's a cool quote from our textbook. It says, "The distinctive aspect of the American creed is its anti-government character, opposition to power, and suspicion of government as the most dangerous embodiment of power are the central themes of American political thought." So we can give the president all this power and want a powerful president, but just as strong of a sentiment is no. We can't give this president too much power, because remember, our our founding fathers just got out of a bad relationship with the king, right? And they don't want to rehash it. They don't want to go back and get in the same toxic relationship with a leader, right? And so so they're very critical and don't want the president to have too much power. In times of peace, we're a lot more critical of the government than we are in turbulent times. Okay. Oh, we can also talk about Andy Bashir. Andy Bashir got elected right before COVID-19 hit, and he he closed schools, right? He closed businesses. He told people you can't get in a group bigger than 10 people. Like, he made all these laws, and for the most part, people were like, yeah, we got to let him do that. But as time went on, there was more and more opposition. And Kentucky is special. You know, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but it's a special place here. And so, of course, the business owners were mad because people aren't going to be coming in and spending money. And, you know, in government, you don't really want to make the business owners mad because they put a lot of money into politics to keep their businesses happy. And in Kentucky, you definitely don't want to make the churches mad, right? That's something you don't want to do. And Andy does this in one fell swoop. And so, you know, a lot of churches went online, and they're like, we're going to have church online. And that's just what we're going to do. And they were fine with the can't gather with 10 or more people. But a lot of churches were really mad about it. And so it led to churches suing the governor. And so it's kind of, and so you'll hear people call him King Andy or Tyrant Andy because they feel like he's taken away a lot of rights of people, like the right to go eat in a restaurant or anything like that. So it's kind of a two-way street. Okay. This is all the 8th grade stuff you got to know. President has got to be born in the United States. That is the Obama was born in Kenya note. Okay. So Barack Obama's dad was Kenyan, black dude. Barack Obama's mom was from like Chicago, white lady. And they met in Hawaii, United States state, right? And so Barack Obama was born in Hawaii. But a lot of people were like, no, he can't be president. He's not a real American. He wasn't born in the U.S. You got to be 35 to be president. Oh, so the natural born American citizen means you can't be born in another country and be president. You have to be at least 35, and you have to have lived in the U.S. for 14 years. So what that means is, say you're born in the U.S. and then your parents moved to England, and then you come back to the U.S. You have to live in the U.S. for the last 14 years to be president. All the presidents so far have been white males, except Obama. All the presidents so far have been Protestants, except for JFK and Biden. They've been Catholic. Okay. I know this is not AP World, so we won't. I won't harp too long on this, but you know, to be a Christian, you have to believe that Jesus died for your sins, right? And Catholics and Baptists and Pentecostals and Methodists and all these different types of Christians are Christians from that definition. The difference between a Protestant and a Catholic was about 500 years ago. There was this Catholic monk who said, hey, we're leaving the Catholic Church. We're going to be Protestants. We're going to be protesters. And all you guys listening to me right now, if you're a Christian, but you're not a Catholic, you're a Protestant. Protestants are everybody who's not Catholic. So Baptist, Presbyterian, Pentecostal, Holiness, Church of God, Church of Christ, Church of Jesus Christ, all those different churches, they're Protestants. And it's weird because most Protestants don't call themselves Protestants, but it basically means you're a non-Catholic Christian. Hi.
Everything you talked about is so controversial. I'm nervous.
Have I said anything wrong?
No, but it's literally a box of everything you shouldn't talk about.
What can I do? So every president we've had believes in Jesus, is what I'm trying to say. And don't walk up to a Catholic and say, hey, I'm not a Catholic, I'm a Christian. Because the Catholic's a Christian too. Now, whether or not that Catholic's going to hell or not, that's up to you guys. And you guys make sure, just wear a t-shirt to school telling them, it'll be fine. And I mean, who gets to be president is sometimes very trivial. Warren G. Harding was at a fundraiser. And so a bunch of the people who were in charge of the party looked at him and were like, that's a good looking dude. He looks like a president. Let's see if he wants to run. And they came over to him and patted him on the back. It's like, hey man, you want to do this? And he's like, okay. And he quite often tops the list as our worst president. The biggest reason is like, he just legit took bribes. Just, okay, give me some money, you get this, you get that. The biggest bribery scandal was called Teapot Dome, where he basically let these businessmen go out and drill for oil on federal land, and in exchange for them just like sliding money under the table. So, yeah. All right. Who did presidents used to be? Okay. Early on, they used to be in the military. They used to be commanders and generals. A lot of time, they are former members of Congress, right? A lot of times, they're governors. Probably one of the most famous job before president was peanut farmers. So Jimmy Carter, who is still alive, by the way, how old? 94? Dar? Uh-oh, she left. Yeah, I think he's 94. But yeah, he was a peanut farmer from Georgia. You have actors. Ronald Reagan was a former actor. They've been former CIA directors. And quite often they're former vice presidents. And so remember, Joe Biden was Barack Obama's vice president. George H.W. Bush was Ronald Reagan's vice president. And that goes back and back. And then, of course, I had to add for our last president, businessmen. That's my favorite picture of Trump. Yeah. All right. So that's what presidents used to be. Oh, also another Trump fact. He's the only president ever to star in a WrestleMania. He's also the only president ever to receive a Stone Cold Stunner, which is a pro wrestling move. So make sure you write that down. All right. So let's talk about their elections. The first thing is there's an amendment. There's a few amendments, but the first one you need to know out of this unit is 2 terms, 2 terms, 2, 2, 22. Okay. The two-term limit is the 22nd Amendment. And here's the thing. The president is the only federal member of the executive branch that has a term limit. And the president did not have a term limit until FDR. So FDR got us out of the Great Depression and got us most of the way through World War II. I think he had 4 terms. Okay, Google. How many terms did FDR serve?
Franklin D. Roosevelt served from March 4th, 1933 until April 12th, 1945.
Okay, so he was on, yeah, he would have ran for his 4th term if he didn't get killed, or didn't get killed. He just died. I've said too much. And so a lot of times people will call the 22nd Amendment the FDR Amendment because, I mean, he had polio and he was all, you know, jacked up or whatever. But I feel like if he was still alive, he'd still be president. He'd just keep going and going and going. And so the 22nd Amendment is like, nah, we need to do something. We don't want the president to have that much power. And so it's 2 terms. Terms are 4 years. Yeah, here's some, sometimes the president doesn't run for a 2nd time. And so Polk, Buchanan, and Hayes said 4 years is enough for me. I'm done. Calvin Coolidge only did part of Harding's term because Harding died. Truman did most of FDR's last term. LBJ did part of Kennedy's. And each of them only served 1 more term after that. One weird catch here is, so if a president can only serve 2 terms, then a president can only be president for 8 years, right? But there's a catch. If you are vice president and the president gets killed in the 3rd year of their term, of course, you're the vice president, so you get those 2 years, right? 3 and 4. You're allowed to run for re-election. So the next 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if they left office in that 2nd part of their term, you get to run again. So you can do 2 years and then 4 years and then 4 more years. So the most amount of time someone can run, someone could be president with the 2-term limit is 4 years. Or sorry, 10 years. Some other fun stuff is that a lot of quite a few presidents were set to run for a 2nd term, but their parties didn't nominate them. Their parties didn't nominate them. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's talk about another amendment you need to know. And that amendment is 25 if they're alive. 25 if they're alive. Okay. So this came about after JFK. So JFK gets shot by one or two people, depending how much of a conspiracy theorist you are. So JFK gets shot. And the situation as to what's the formal process of making this president or making LBJ president. And that ends up becoming fleshed out into the 25th Amendment. So it's if a president dies or resigns, and I'm going to say this too, or can't complete their duties. And so 25th Amendment is big. People were talking about the 25th Amendment after the January 6th siege on the Capitol. And basically what people were saying was President Trump, some people said President Trump just gave a speech and went home, and everybody needs to leave him alone, right? But a lot of other people said, you know, he told people to go try to overthrow the government. And so people were making an argument of he can't be president anymore. Like he can't complete his duty as president because he's telling people to try to overthrow the government. And so the what people said was, let's use the 25th Amendment to get rid of it. And so the way they could have used the 25th Amendment is the vice president has to come to the cabinet, and the vice president says, hey, our president can't be president anymore. And the vice president gives the cabinet a sheet of paper that says that. And then the cabinet votes. And if there's a majority vote of the cabinet, the president's immediately removed from office and the vice president becomes the president. And so that's what people were trying to do. But that's kind of a pipe dream in today's politics. But so the line of succession thing is who secedes. So who is going to take over when I'm gone? And it looks like this. You do not have to memorize this, but this is who gets to be president. And of course, president, vice president. Then it gets kind of wonky because it goes into Congress for a minute. So the Speaker of the House is the third person that's in line for the presidency. So the politics are interesting because let's think about Trump's last term. If Trump died or got removed for whatever reason, and then the same thing happened to Mike Pence, then the Democrats lose the White House because the Speaker of the House is Nancy Pelosi, who's a Democrat, right? And so basically they give it to the top leader in both houses. Of course, we know that the president pro tempore of the Senate is not really that important, but in this situation they are. And then they throw it to the cabinet. And in the cabinet, it's where you are in line is based on when was your cabinet department created. So Secretary of State, they're like the most important ambassador. That makes sense. Treasury, okay, blah, blah, blah. Then we get down here to the Secretary of Agriculture. Okay, well, all right, let's keep going. Secretary of Transportation, They need to be running the country. And it's funny because when it gets down to the end, we have like the Veterans Affairs. That sounds like a really important job, taking care of veterans, but they're at the bottom. And then the very bottom is like a super important cabinet position of the Department of Homeland Security. But that wasn't created until after 9/11 in 2001. So that's why. For impeachment, this is important because President Trump is being impeached as I speak. Okay. Things I've told you guys before, you can impeach doesn't mean removed. It just means being put on trial. And the Constitution is very vague. They say it's for high crimes and misdemeanors. Well, it's high crimes and misdemeanors. Well, it's up to debate. All you need to impeach the president is a majority vote in the House. And seeing how there's only been 3 people impeached with such a low bar is pretty amazing for the United States. You would think every time we have a president that's a different party than the House, that they be impeached, but that's not been the case. Basically, the House is going to be the prosecution. The House is going to bring charges. Usually, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is the judge, the presiding official, and then the jury is the Senate. But you have to have 2/3 of the Senate. That's a lot of votes. Okay. When the Democrats impeached President Trump the first time, they didn't even have a majority in the Senate, let alone a 2/3 majority. That means you have to have 67 senators, right? And right now there's exactly 50 Republican senators and 50 Democratic senators. Okay. And so that jury, it's going to be really hard to get them. All right. So technically, so there's been 4 impeachments now. And 2 of them belong to President Trump. All right. So let's start with Andrew Johnson. After Reconstruction, or during Reconstruction, he wants to be lenient with the Southern states. And the Republicans, who are the anti-slavery party at that time, said, you're putting our whole country at risk. We're impeaching you. It was a political thing. And they knew they couldn't get the 2/3 of the Senate. Okay? All right. So Bill Clinton dated one of his interns who was a college student, and he dated her in the White House. And he was very married. And he got caught. And he gave a press conference to the entire country. And he said his most famous quote, and this is kind of hilarious that this is his most famous quote. He said, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. So that's his most famous quote. And so all this evidence come out, and yeah, he did. And so the Republicans, who had control of the House, said, he lied to the American people, let's impeach him. Okay. And so at that point, it was a big deal. It was a big trial, but there wasn't, the Republicans didn't have 2/3 of the Senate. Nixon. So we'll talk more about Watergate later, but basically Nixon paid people to go try to steal papers from the Democrats. And they proved that he did do that. And he was going to get impeached, and he was probably going to get removed, but he resigned. Okay. And then, of course, you have the two Donald Trump impeachments. Both of those were political in that the Democrats knew they weren't going to be able to have both. Let's see, I'm running behind. So you guys remind me on Monday to hit this last slide, because I have AP World coming up at 10, and I'm going to have to jump over there with them. So remind me on Monday to talk about politics of impeachment. You guys, it's very awesome. Later today, it's very awesome that you guys got up on a Friday morning to do this. I appreciate it. Remember, at 11 and 1 today, there are AP or ACT review sessions. And I hope you guys have a good weekend, and bye.